Hello again, Extreme Disciples. I know it's been a little while since I've seen you. I've taken a little time off, and I realized, well, that doesn't mean that we have to take time off from discipling. So now that I'm back, I want to jump right back into some of our video blogs. And today I want to share an experience with you and then tie it to how we can be extreme disciples and kind of how Paul did it. There's a nice little ice cream store here in town, and it's the only place in town you can go up to and get the nice soft serve ice cream, and they've got the picnic tables out front so you can eat them, and then not eat the picnic tables but the ice cream, of course. But when you pull up, and if you're not careful, when you back out, and if it's at dark and you back out, there's something there that you can run into. Well, I ran into this thing, and it's the cement thing that holds the sign. And I ran into it. I backed into it, and I shattered my brake light, and I got really upset, and I left, and I came back the next day, and I saw that obviously I wasn't the only one because there was just pieces of that stuff all over the place. So apparently a lot of people have backed into that. Well, I went to the counter and I talked to the little full-time or part-time high schooler that was working. Not a manager, of course, but whoever it is that takes to run the stand. Anyway, and I mentioned to her, I said, listen, there needs to be something a little bit better to prevent people from backing into that because I'm not the only one that's done it. And she goes, well, there's a sign. I'm thinking, well, I didn't see a sign when I was backing into it. But by her saying there's a sign, her canned answer to people complaining, it was her way of getting out of responsibility for warning me of something that could happen to me. Since it was something else there, not speaking, but just positioned, that it removed responsibility from her. So I go back to my car and I look, and in front of me, there's a sign. It's kind of up and hidden, but it says, "Be careful while you back up." And I'm thinking, well, I thought, of course you're going to be careful while you back up because there's cars coming in and out. But I hadn't seen that sign before. But it doesn't say, don't run into the pole behind you. It just says, be careful while backing up. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to see that because I'm looking backwards when I'm backing up. So it's in a bad spot. So either way, this poorly positioned sign, even though it's there, was her way of removing herself from responsibility from telling me the full truth. Now, as I'm driving down the interstate or going cross-country or going on long road trips, I see bulletin boards along the interstate. And you know these bulletin boards, they have scriptures written on them, or letters from God or whatever it is, these big bulletin boards that say things about God or about Jesus and about faith. And people can read those and just keep on driving, but they saw them. And then people put the bumper stickers on their cars that say, they have scripture on them. And telling you, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. All these things that we plaster all over the place. And we say, well, I told someone, whoever was sitting behind me in traffic had to have seen my bumper sticker, so they, through me, heard about Christ. No. We can't just assume that the things that we post are going to get the message across, because people are going to see those and still say, I don't know who that God is. I see people talking about that God, but I don't know who that God is. Just because there's a God on a sign doesn't mean I know who that God is. Guess what? We have to tell them who that God is. We can't just say, look at that bulletin board, and be satisfied with them knowing about God. And I'm going to read this passage for you, and this is why we should do this. I'm going to try to keep this quick for you today. I am in Acts 17, verse 22. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus, please forgive my pronunciation, and said, Men of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, To an unknown God. Now what you worship as something unknown, I'm going to proclaim to you. So see, Paul could have said, well, I know who that unknown God is, and he could have said, I don't need to tell them because it's right there. I know the God they're worshiping, that they're calling an unknown God, and to them, God was unknown, but Paul could have said, well, they're worshiping a God that's unknown to them, and that's essentially worshiping God, so I can leave it alone. They've got the bulletin board there that says to worship this God. Enough said. But that's not what he said. He said, now what you worship as something unknown, I'm going to proclaim to you. And then Paul goes through and tells them about God. Now we can stand there and point at billboards all day, but what we need to say to these people, and I'm telling you what, if you were a tourist coming to this country and all the billboards you saw, you would think that this is a godly nation because of all the license, all the bumper stickers and the billboards and everything that people use to proclaim Christ without their mouths. You would think we're worshiping some God, but I think even to the people that have the bumper stickers on their cars, God is unknown. But we need to go to the people and say, you know what, I know you've seen the bumper stickers, I know you've seen the bulletin boards, but I don't think you still really know God. Let me tell you about what you don't know, or about what these signs are trying to make you know. We need to be intentional about discipleship and not just thinking, oh, let's let the signs do the work. The signs aren't going to cut it. We need to tell them about the God they don't know about. Go out, find someone that doesn't know about God, and tell them. Don't just point to a sign. Be extreme. God bless.